And this, everyone, is Marcus. He's been running the data drop-off like clockwork all week.
Come on, smile, man.
He refuses to brag, so we will. Hold those reports up for the photo.
Like this? Perfect. Got it. Nice.
These Q3 projections are even better than we anticipated.
I knew this strategy would pay off. This is incredible work, truly.
Translate this and I'll marry you. The boardroom erupted in laughter. Cameras flashed. A billionaire CEO stood there, mocking the black janitor holding a mop, treating him like entertainment, like he was invisible. But what she didn't know? Marcus wasn't just a janitor. He was a former UN interpreter who spoke 12 languages. And the document she waved in the air? It wasn't just any contract. It was worth $1 billion, and it was about to expire in 48 hours if no one could translate it. She thought she was humiliating him. Instead, she was about to hand him the deal of a lifetime. Before we continue, pause for a moment. If you saw someone being humiliated like this, would you speak up or would you stay silent? Drop your honest answer in the comments. Let's talk about it. Marcus Thompson wasn't supposed to be pushing a mop cart through the gleaming marble hallways of Sterling Global Enterprises. 10 years ago, he'd stood in conference rooms just like this one, not as the help, but as the help, a senior interpreter for the United Nations, fluent in 12 languages: Arabic, Mandarin, Portuguese, Russian, German, French, Swahili. His gift had opened doors across continents, seated him beside presidents and diplomats, made him indispensable in rooms where wars ended and treaties began. But life has a cruel way of rewriting stories. His daughter, Amara, was diagnosed with leukemia at age 7. The medical bills piled up faster than his salary could cover. He drained his savings, sold his car, took loans he couldn't repay. When the UN reassigned him overseas during her worst month of chemo, he refused. They fired him for insubordination. So Marcus became invisible. He traded his tailored suits for a gray polo and black apron, traded boardroom negotiations for bleach and floor wax. Now, at 46, he mopped floors in the same kinds of buildings where he once shaped history. Nobody looked at him. Nobody asked his name. To them, he was furniture. And that's exactly how Catherine Sterling saw him. She was the CEO of Sterling Global, a self-made billionaire who'd built her empire on international mergers and hostile takeovers. Sharp, ruthless, brilliant. She didn't suffer fools, and she didn't waste time on people she deemed beneath her. Marcus had been cleaning the executive floor for 6 months. Not once had she acknowledged him. Until today. It was a Tuesday morning, 9:47 a.m. The autumn sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Conference Room A, illuminating the New York City skyline. Inside, Catherine's team was gathered for an emergency meeting. Lawyers, executives, advisors, all white, all tense. On the table sat a single document, a joint venture contract with a consortium of European and African firms. If signed, it would secure Sterling Global's dominance in renewable energy for the next decade, worth $1.2 billion. The problem? The contract was written in a rare dialect of Wolof, a West African language, mixed with legal French and Arabic clauses, and it had to be translated, verified, and signed within 48 hours, or the deal would collapse. Catherine had already burned through 3 translation agencies. None could handle the nuance. Her lawyers were panicking. Her board was furious. And Marcus? He was emptying the trash. He moved quietly along the edge of the room, eyes down, doing his job. But as he passed the table, he glanced at the document. Just a glance. His heart stopped. He knew that dialect. He'd translated treaties in Dakar, negotiated mining rights in Senegal. This wasn't just Wolof, it was Lebu Wolof, a coastal variation so specific that fewer than 50,000 people spoke it fluently. And Marcus was one of them. But He said nothing. He'd learned long ago that speaking up only made things worse. Better to stay invisible. Better to survive. Catherine slammed her hand on the table. This is a disaster. We're going to lose the biggest deal of the year because no one in this God-forsaken city can translate a language? One of the junior associates, desperate to lighten the mood, chuckled nervously. Maybe we should ask the janitor? He joked, nodding toward Marcus. The room went silent. Then someone laughed. Then another. Soon the entire table was snickering, pointing at Marcus like he was part of the furniture, like he was the punchline. Catherine turned, her icy blue eyes locking onto him. A slow, mocking smile spread across her face. "You know what?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "That's actually a great idea." She picked up the document and walked toward him, heels clicking on the marble floor. Marcus froze, mop in hand. She held the contract in front of his face. "Translate this," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "and I'll marry you." The room exploded in laughter. Phones came out, pictures were snapped. Someone filmed it for their Instagram story. Marcus stood there, silent, humiliated, invisible. But his eyes were on the document. And he understood every single word. The laughter echoed in Marcus's ears long after Catherine turned her back on him. She tossed the contract onto the table, still chuckling, and returned to her seat. "God, I needed that," she muttered, wiping a tear from her eye. The executives were still giggling, exchanging glances, shaking their heads at the absurdity of it. Marcus gripped the handle of his mop cart. His jaw tightened, his pulse pounded in his temples. "Say something," a voice inside him whispered. "Speak up! Tell them!" But another voice, louder, older, scarred by years of rejection, said, "Don't. You'll only make it worse. You'll lose this job, too." He turned to leave. "Wait." The word came from Richard Pembroke, Catherine's chief legal counsel, mid-50s, British, always impeccably dressed. He sat at the far end of the table, fingers steepled, watching Marcus with a curious expression. "Hold on a moment," Richard said, his accent crisp and precise. He leaned forward. "You, what's your name?" "Marcus, sir." "Marcus." Richard nodded slowly. "Tell me, when you looked at that document just now, did you recognize the language?" The room went still. Catherine's smile faded. Her eyes narrowed. Marcus felt every gaze in the room lock onto him, the weight of it pressed down like a physical force. He could lie. He could walk away. He could stay invisible. But Amara's face flashed in his mind. His daughter, 14 now, healthy, thank God, but still struggling, still needing a future he couldn't afford to give her. He took a breath. "Yes, sir," Marcus said quietly. "I recognize it." Silence. Then Catherine laughed, a sharp, disbelieving bark. "Oh, come on. You're telling me the janitor knows Wolof?" "Not just Wolof," Marcus said, his voice steady now. "Lebu Wolof, a coastal dialect from Senegal, mixed with legal French and Quranic Arabic. It's used primarily in maritime trade agreements and religious arbitration councils." The room went dead silent. Richard's eyebrows shot up. Catherine's expression shifted from amusement to suspicion. "How the hell do you know that?" she demanded. Marcus met her eyes. "Because I spent 5 years translating contracts like this for the UN. I worked in Dakar, Geneva, and Brussels. I was a senior interpreter before I left." Catherine stared at him. For the first time, she actually looked at him, not through him, not past him, at him. "You're serious?" she said slowly. "Yes, ma'am." She stood, walked over, and picked up the contract. She held it out to him.
Prove it. Marcus hesitated. Then he set down his mop, wiped his hands on his apron, and took the document. He scanned the first page. The words came flooding back, muscle memory from another life. He could hear the voices of diplomats, the hum of translation booths, the scratch of pens on treaty paper. "This is a joint venture agreement," Marcus began, his voice calm and precise, "between Sterling Global Enterprises and a consortium of 6 firms, 3 European, 3 West African. It outlines terms for a renewable energy project spanning Senegal, Mauritania, and Morocco. The contract stipulates profit-sharing ratios, environmental compliance standards, and dispute resolution through Sharia-compliant arbitration councils." He looked up. "It's incredibly complex. Whoever drafted this knew exactly what they were doing, and if you sign it without understanding every clause, you'll lose control of your own project within 2 years." Catherine's face had gone pale. Richard leaned forward. "What's your full name?" "Marcus Thompson." Richard typed something into his laptop. His eyes widened. "Jesus Christ! Marcus Thompson, former UN interpreter, Geneva Bureau, fluent in 12 languages, specialized in African trade law and multilateral negotiations." He looked up, stunned. "You were legendary." Catherine's jaw tightened. "Then what the hell are you mopping my floors for?" Marcus's expression didn't change. "I needed a job." The room was silent. Then Catherine did something no one expected. She sat down, slowly, deliberately. She folded her hands on the table. "Translate it," she said. "All of it. Every word, every clause. If you do this, if you save this deal, I'll pay you. Name your price." Marcus stared at her. "I don't want money." "Then what do you want?" "A job, a real one. Not pushing a mop, a position where I can use my skills again, and not just for me, but for people like me, people who get overlooked because of what they look like or where they've been." Catherine's eyes flickered. "You want me to hire you?" "I want you to see me." The words hung in the air. Richard cleared his throat. "Catherine, if he can actually translate this—" "I know," she snapped. She looked at Marcus. "Fine, you have 24 hours. Translate the entire contract. If it's accurate, you're hired. Senior consultant, 6-figure salary. But if you're wrong, if you cost me this deal, you're done. Not just here, everywhere. I'll make sure of it." Marcus nodded. "Understood." She handed him the contract. "Don't disappoint me." But here's what Catherine didn't know. Marcus wasn't just translating a contract, he was uncovering a trap. As he worked through the night in a cramped office they'd given him, he began to notice something. Buried in the Arabic clauses, hidden in the legal jargon, were poison pills. Clauses that would allow the consortium to seize control of Sterling's assets if certain environmental benchmarks weren't met, benchmarks that were impossible to achieve. This wasn't a partnership. It was a corporate ambush, and Catherine Sterling was about to walk straight into it. Marcus sat back in his chair, exhausted. He could walk away. Let her sign it. Let her lose everything. After the way she'd humiliated him, he'd be justified. But that wasn't who he was. At 8:47 a.m. the next morning, Marcus walked into conference room A. Catherine and her entire team were waiting. She looked exhausted, tense. "Well?" she demanded. Marcus set the translation on the table. Richard grabbed it, scanning frantically. His face went white. "Jesus Christ, Catherine, if you'd signed this." "What?" she snapped. "You'd have lost the company." Marcus stood. "The contract is designed to look favorable, but the arbitration clauses are rigged. The environmental benchmarks are impossible. They were setting you up to fail so they could take Sterling Global piece by piece." Catherine stared at him, speechless. "I've rewritten the clauses. If you want, I can negotiate directly with the consortium. I know 3 of the signatories personally. I can fix this. Silence. Then Catherine did something she'd never done in her life. She stood, walked over to Marcus, and extended her hand. Thank you.
Marcus didn't shake her hand right away. He stood there, looking at Catherine Sterling's outstretched palm, and for a moment the entire room seemed to hold its breath. This was the woman who'd mocked him in front of a dozen people, who'd laughed at him, who'd treated him like he was nothing. And now she wanted to thank him? "Do you even remember," Marcus said quietly, "what you said to me yesterday?" Catherine's hand wavered. Her expression shifted, uncomfortable, defensive. "I was frustrated," she said. "It was a joke." "A joke," Marcus repeated. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "You held $1 billion contract in my face and told me you'd marry me if I could translate it. You laughed. Your entire team laughed. Someone took a picture and posted it online. Do you know what that feels like? To be treated like your entertainment." Catherine's jaw tightened. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Marcus interrupted. "You meant every word. Because to you, I wasn't a person. I was invisible. I was a janitor. And janitors don't have degrees. They don't speak 12 languages. They don't save billion-dollar deals. They just exist." The room was silent. Richard Pembroke shifted uncomfortably. One of the junior associates stared at the floor. Catherine lowered her hand. "You're right," she said finally. "I did see you that way, and I was wrong." Marcus studied her face. "Why are you apologizing now? Because I'm useful?" "Because I should have seen you before you were useful." The words landed like a punch. Catherine took a breath. "I built this company from nothing. I clawed my way to the top in a world that told me I didn't belong. And somewhere along the way, I became the same kind of person I used to hate. I stopped seeing people. I started seeing assets, tools, obstacles." She looked at Marcus. "You deserved better, and I'm sorry." Marcus didn't respond immediately. He looked around the room at the faces of the people who'd laughed at him, who'd pointed their phones, who'd treated him like a punchline. "Apologies are easy," he said. "What matters is what you do next." Catherine nodded. "Then let me do this. You said you wanted a job. I'm offering you more than that. I want you to build a department. Diversity and inclusion. Not the performative kind. The real kind. I want you to find the people like you, the ones who've been overlooked, the ones who've been made invisible. And I want you to give them a chance." Marcus stared at her. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. Full autonomy, unlimited budget. Report directly to me, and I'll pay you what you're worth. Not what I think you're worth, what you actually are." Richard Pembroke cleared his throat. "Catherine, that's non-negotiable," she said, cutting him off. She looked back at Marcus. "So what do you say?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. "One condition," he said. "The first person I hire is someone who looks like me, who's been where I've been, who knows what it's like to be invisible." Catherine shook his hand. "Deal." But the story didn't end there. 3 days later, the consortium's representatives flew to New York for the contract signing. They expected to meet Catherine Sterling. Instead, they met Marcus Thompson. He walked into the room in a tailored navy suit, calm and composed, and greeted them in flawless Wolof, French, and Arabic. Their faces went pale. "Gentlemen," Marcus said, "I believe we have some revisions to discuss." For the next 6 hours, Marcus dismantled their predatory contract clause by clause by clause. He spoke their languages. He knew their legal systems. He anticipated every move. By the end of the day, the consortium had agreed to a fair deal, one that protected Sterling Global while still delivering value to all parties. When Marcus walked out of that room, Catherine was waiting in the hallway. "You just saved my company," she said. "No," Marcus replied. "You did. The moment you decided to listen." The contract was signed, the deal closed. Sterling Global's stock soared, and Marcus Thompson, he became one of the most powerful voices in corporate America, not because he was loud, but because he refused to remain invisible. But the moment that mattered most wasn't the contract, it wasn't the promotion, it wasn't the money. It was the day Catherine called him into her office and handed him a framed photo. It was the picture someone had taken of him in the boardroom, the day she'd mocked him. "I kept this," she said quietly, "to remind myself never to do that again." Marcus looked at the photo, then at her. "Good," he said, "because I'm not the only one who's been invisible. And we're just getting started."
2 years later, Marcus Thompson stood in the same boardroom where he'd once been humiliated. But this time, he wasn't holding a mop. He was presenting Sterling Global's annual diversity report to the board of directors, and the numbers were staggering. Under Marcus's leadership, the company had hired over 300 people from underrepresented backgrounds, former refugees, ex-convicts rebuilding their lives, single parents who'd been written off by other companies, people with disabilities, people who'd been told they weren't enough. Marcus had found them, trained them, empowered them, and they were thriving. "Productivity is up 34%, Marcus said, clicking to the next slide. "Employee retention has increased by 41%. Customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high, and our reputation as an employer of choice has attracted top-tier talent from across the globe." Catherine sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, a small smile on her face. One of the board members, a silver-haired man named Gerald, raised his hand. "Mr. Thompson, this is impressive, but I have to ask, how much of this is optics? Are we actually seeing ROI, or is this just good PR?" Marcus didn't flinch. "With all due respect, Gerald, people aren't optics. They're assets. And when you invest in people who've been overlooked, you're not just doing the right thing. You're tapping into a reservoir of talent that your competitors are ignoring. That's not PR. That's strategy." The room went silent. Then Catherine stood. "Gerald, Marcus just saved this company $1.2 billion and rebuilt our entire talent pipeline. I think his ROI speaks for itself." Gerald nodded slowly. "Fair enough." After the meeting, Marcus walked out into the hallway. His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. "Dad, I got into Columbia, full scholarship, pre-med." Marcus stopped walking. His vision blurred. He'd done it. He'd given her the future he couldn't afford before. Catherine appeared beside him. "Good news?" Marcus showed her the text. She smiled. "She gets that from you, you know, the resilience." "She gets it from her mother," Marcus said quietly. "I just didn't quit." Catherine looked at him. "You know, I've been thinking about that day, the day I mocked you. I remember. I was wrong, but more than that, I was blind. I looked at you and saw a janitor. I didn't see a father, a linguist, a man with skills and experience and dignity. I just didn't see you." Marcus nodded. "A lot of people don't." "That's why what you're doing matters," Catherine said. "You're making people visible. You're giving them a chance to be seen." "I'm giving them a chance to be themselves," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." 6 months later, Marcus was invited to speak at a corporate leadership summit. The ballroom was packed. CEOs, executives, thought leaders from around the world. He took the stage, looked out at the sea of faces, and began. "My name is Marcus Thompson. 2 years ago, I was a janitor. I mopped floors in a building where people like me were invisible, where I was a punchline, where I was nothing. He paused. But I was never nothing. I was a father, a linguist, a man with skills and experience and dignity. I just wasn't seen. The audience was silent. Here's what I learned, Marcus continued, his voice strong and clear. Invisibility isn't just about being ignored. It's about being erased. It's about living in a world that looks right through you, that treats you like furniture, that assumes you have nothing to offer. He looked out at the crowd. But here's the truth. The most valuable people in your organization might be the ones you're not seeing. The receptionist who speaks 4 languages, the warehouse worker who has an engineering degree, the janitor who saved a billion-dollar deal. Scattered applause began to build. So here's my challenge to you, Marcus said, his voice strong and clear. Stop looking at titles. Stop looking at resumes. Start looking at people. Because the next Marcus Thompson is already in your building. You're just not seeing them yet. The ballroom erupted in applause. Marcus never forgot that day in the boardroom. He kept the photo Catherine had given him on his desk, not as a reminder of the pain, but as a reminder of the power of being seen. Because visibility isn't just about recognition, it's about humanity. It's about dignity. It's about looking at another person and saying, "You matter." And in a world that so often looks past people like Marcus, that might be the most radical act of all. So here's the question. Who are you making invisible? Not with malice, not with cruelty, but with indifference, with assumptions, with a glance that sees a title instead of a person. Because somewhere, right now, there's a Marcus Thompson in your world, someone with gifts you can't imagine, someone who's been overlooked, underestimated, erased, and they're waiting for someone to see them. Will it be you? If this story moved you, share it. If it challenged you, reflect on it. And if it changed you, do something about it. Let's make sure no one stays invisible.